Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Brewer. I'm the current historian here at Faultville number 396 under the Grand Lodge, Alabama. I'm here with Uncle Bud. Uncle Bud, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello, how are you?
Bud, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Thomas Andrew Hill, but I've had Bud as my nickname all my life. And I was born November 27, 1917. And I don't know, I've lived in the state all my life. Never moved out nowhere. So not much happening, just everyday stuff. So everything's been good though, still good. And I enjoy life, still enjoy life.
Bud, do you remember, what's your earliest memory?
Oh, on the farm in the country, plowing a mule and that sort of thing.
Plowing mule, huh?
Yeah.
Don't see any mules around here anymore.
No, the old mule did his parts though. He pulled the plow and cleaned the land. You know, it was early on. The land was covered in timber, trees, and shrubs. The old mule pulled the log, pulled the stumps, and he did his part.
Well, good.
He was a good old mule. Well, I don't know. I more or less grew up in a isolated environment. There wasn't people like there is now. You know, the closest neighbor might be 3 mile or 10 mile or something. And we more or less just stayed pretty close to the family.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I can remember is the change that has come in the 100 years. There's been so much change. The country has developed with all kind of technology and all kind of machinery and stuff. In the early years, all we had was a plow and a hoe and maybe a cultivator or something like that.
Right.
And we just survived off of the land. The land, the earth has been good to us. It has supplied us with our needs.
It really has.
And because now we have gotten in technology so far, so it's a different world.
Yep, it sure is. Well, you mentioned that in those days it was mainly family that come around. Now, being from the older generation on that side of the Brewers, I don't really know much of that family. Can you speak on some of those family members, who they were, what their names were?
The Brewers come to Hartsville right after the war, at the end of the war. There was an uncle lived over there, and he was moving to Birmingham, and they bought his place. And old man Lee and had them 5 boys, and at the end of the war, every once in a while, one of the boys come around and wanted to know where Lee Brewer was. Well, you know, they're getting out home after the war.
Yeah.
And they was well pleased. They settled down and went to work. and they was all big, strong workers, you know. They, I don't know how much crops they tended, but they tended the one that bought, and then they sharecropped some of the others.
Right.
But they, and they all, most of them gone now. I think Calvin is still living with the boys.
Uh-huh.
The girls are all gone. But the old grandma Brewer come with them. She's buried out there in the cemetery at Sioux Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one of them stayed in Lawrence County, the oldest boy. And the rest of them settled right here in the area.
Uh-huh.
And they made good citizens, worked hard, good people.
Uh-huh. Now, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had one sister, then I had two half sisters, and
Okay.
a half brother.
Okay. And what were their names, bud?
The half sisters was Charlotte and Eloise. The boy name was Bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he lived here. He passed away about 5 years ago. And my sister, she passed away in '88, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the Eloise that's younger than me. She's still living.
Okay. Well, Bud, I think everybody's younger than you.
He's the last one of us, but she still lives in Trafford, Alabama.
Okay. Well, we're going to change gears here a little bit. We're going to talk about schooling now. Of course, I'm sure back in those days, schooling was a lot different. Can you talk about how school was structured and your part in that?
Yes, I went to school in a one-room schoolhouse. We had one teacher, and it was a row here and a row of seats there, and then a row of seats over there. And they didn't call it first, second, third grade like then. You'd finish the couple of books here and then you move over. I didn't learn nothing. You couldn't learn much. A bunch of old country boys, you know, and that big old rough teacher is more or less of a bouncer, maybe than a teacher, because the women couldn't control them old big mean boys. But that old teacher would, man, he'd wear them out. And we had one car in the parking lot, and that was the teacher's.
I'll be darned.
And it was an old T model and wouldn't start a lot of times, and he'd get them old boys out there, you know, crank it. He'd get in there, and sometimes he'd have to jack up a rear wheel, and that would make it start better.
Yeah.
And we have a mule or two, a horse tied up out there. Some of the boys, you know, handle the mules and things. They just ride an old mule up there and a horse or something.
Yeah.
And I went back 10 years ago, I guess, to find the place. And I got close, but I never could find the location. The woods and the briars and everything that took it over.
Yeah.
But I still remember it. I really didn't get much education. You couldn't get much.
So, At what age do you think you were when you quit going?
Let's see, I started when I was 7,
Uh-huh.
and I went about 5, or about 12.
About 12. Well, living on the farm, I'm sure you had all kind of chores and stuff. So at that age of 12, when you quit going to school, did you go to work full time?
Yeah, you do a full day's work by then. I was, well, didn't need much education. There wasn't nothing to do but follow a mule,
Right.
and so I just quit and went to working at home on the farm and everything.
Uh-huh.
Back then, the only money that you earned is you plant a little cotton, you know, and bring a little cash in.
Right.
And that just once a year,
Right.
and you had to make it last all year.
Right.
But you didn't depend on the supermarket or nothing for your food. You raised the food and put it up, kept
Right.
it to eat that winter. Had a lot of good food to eat, though. We had to cut wood, you know, to stay warm.
Right.
But that wasn't no problem. We lived close to the woods. And so I guess we made it pretty good, considering everything. We didn't have any radio or nothing like that. You didn't, when you sit down and eat, you didn't talk about the news. There wasn't no news.
Right.
Newspapers were about all the news you had. If somebody had said you something. But with no phone or nothing like that.
Right.
It was just more or less your own little group, and then the next place over there be a bunch of people living just like you did on the farm, you know.
Right.
About all it was. Things didn't get developed much until after the World War II. After
Right.
that, everything began to move pretty fast.
Right. So during that time frame, from about the time you were 12 working on the farm, that was the time of the stock market crash and the Great Depression. Did you really see a change in this area? You know, if it really wasn't developed and everybody was kind of farming, I suspect there probably wasn't a whole lot of change when the Depression hit.
Yeah, we didn't pay much attention to it. Now, some of the better, well-to-do farmers had a little money that lost, you know, and the banks all failed.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any, so we didn't lose any. But when that depression set in, we already knew how to survive, and
Right.
we just went through it and survived it. But you couldn't get a hold of any cash hardly. You might deal in the timber some way, cut cross ties or cut logs, but nobody had any money to buy or anything.
Right.
The railroad would buy cross ties, but you know, they couldn't buy everybody's cross ties, so if you go ahead and cut it, and then you could sell them, it was all right.
Yeah.
But get a little cash that way, but not much. You more or less just did without cash.
Yeah.
But They was pretty good as far as I know. We had about everything that we needed to eat. You might run low on something,
Yeah.
but you could go take corn and they grind it and make meal, and if you had wheat, you could grind it into flour.
Right.
But we hunted a lot and ate a lot of wild meat,
Yeah.
rabbits and things.
Yeah.
But it was sure different.
Yeah.
We didn't fish and that sort of thing. We fished a lot and
Yeah.
a lot of fish. And it ate pretty good. It did pretty good with it. And, the medical part now, if you got sick, you might live way in the country somewhere and you didn't have no car or nothing.
Right.
You just had to doctor yourself.
Right.
Overcome it. Most of the time when you get sick, if you wait a little while, you get better anyway.
That's the truth.
The doctors, he just calms you down and gives you a little something to let your body heal itself.
Yeah.
And
All right. Now you was talking about medicine and going to the doctor. Was there anybody in the community, say, that practiced home remedies or something that you might could go see?
yes, you know, for the birthing the babies and things, well, there'd be old women,
Uh-huh.
and when the time come, they would get her to do it, and I reckon she did very well because they never had much trouble. They'd had surgery, a little surgery, but nothing like they got now.
Right.
It might, they could take out appendix and things, but heart bypass and all that was never dreamed of. You didn't, if you had heart trouble, he might give you aspirin or something to calm you down, and that's
Yeah.
about all, and said you passed on.
Yeah.
But if it's gonna put you to sleep for the surgery, they had this chloroform and a rag, and they'd wet the rag with the chloroform and put you to sleep.
Over there.
And that was the hope you didn't wake up till he got through.
Well, that'd be bad, wouldn't it?
They had an old country doctor be around just about every settlement, you know, be a doctor.
Uh-huh.
And you might give him a chicken and a couple of dozen eggs or something, and he'd be on his way.
Well, I wish we could get medical service for that today.
The old country doctor, he served his time well. He served the people. A lot of them didn't pay him, didn't have anything to pay him, you know.
Right.
And when they'd call him, he didn't know whether he was going to get anything or not. But he might end up getting a pig or something.
Right.
But they was good old country doctors, though. Yeah,
Well, you talked about only being one car and that being the school teacher. Do you remember the first car you bought?
the first one I bought was a 27 model Chevrolet.
Uh-huh.
It was used.
What year did you buy that in? Do you remember?
It was somewhere in 30, 37, I guess.
About 37.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't many cars, and I had a motorcycle one time,
Uh-oh.
but I didn't get nowhere with that thing because we didn't have no roads much, you know, and that big mud holes you'd have to go through.
Uh-huh.
When you went through that mud hole and you got on the other side, you was muddy all from head to foot, you know.
Well, I wish we had a picture of that.
But I didn't keep it long. I didn't like that. But, the old cars did well, though. The old T model wasn't much good. You couldn't get it cranked. The A models was good. They crank and run.
Uh-huh.
We used the A model well.
Well, now, talk about meeting your wife the first time.
Oh, well, back then, you might, if somebody had a party or something like that,
Uh-huh.
the people would come just to have somewhere to go, you know. And,
Right.
So I was over at this house, and she was there, and so I thought she was the prettiest thing I ever seen, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I took right out after her.
Yeah.
And we, oh, I don't know, we married 50 years later. We married in 37.
Uh-huh.
And we was married 64 years, I guess. She died in '02.
Oh, two?
Yeah. But we had it pretty good. I was glad I did. You know, back then, things wasn't like it is now. People kind of depended on each other, you know, and
Right.
helped each other along. But we had a good life. No problems, no regrets.
Well, good. Let's see. So, looking back over the years, there's been all kind of stuff in politics. Do you remember anything political wise that kind of sticks out in your mind? We kind of talked about the stock market crash, and then Joey's going to come later and talk to you about the war. But I'm sure I'm sure you remember when Kennedy got shot and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about some of those things and kind of where you were at in your life when they happened.
We kind of kept up with it, with the presidents and everything. And, you know, during Hoover's time is when the big depression hit.
Uh-huh.
And then things was really bad and got worse through the years. And after Roosevelt was in there a couple of years, things didn't get better.
Uh-huh.
And things didn't pick up. But man, that depression, it shut everything down.
Yeah.
There was people lived in investment there when it shut down all the jobs. They lost their jobs, they lost everything. Living in the city, they couldn't raise food hardly, you know, like the country.
Uh-huh.
And they migrated out in the country. There was a lot of land back then, and a fellow might have a good bit of land, and he would let them stay on that land, and they'd help him with his work and everything. And that's
Yeah.
the way a lot of them survived. That's the way we survived. We went to the country and just began to live off of the land.
Yeah.
And it was a rough time through that depression.
Yeah.
A lot of them didn't make it, but the ones that got in the country and knew how to raise stuff and everything, they survived pretty good. But and a lot of Bassman had a lot of row houses, you know, they call them shotgun houses, to rent houses.
Right.
When that depression, they moved out of them, and the ones living next door had no way to get warm or heat or nothing, and they went inside them other houses and tore out cabinets or whatever they get and burned it for wood.
Oh, heck.
Had to do that to survive.
Yeah.
And people left the city, went to the country. Well, it was a rough old time.
Yeah. Well, after the war, you come back to the States. Did you go back to the farm, or did you pick up a job then?
Well, I worked, after I come back, I worked in the oil mines, and the coal mines, and the shipyard,
Mm-hmm.
and farmed a little too, come back and farmed. You know, back then you done got to where you could work in town and the farm too. So
Right.
we did that, and I worked on the oil mines and on Red Mountain in Birmingham,
Okay.
and then I worked in the coal mines in Bessemer. Worked in the shipyard in Decatur, the Angles, the old
Yeah.
Angles in Decatur. I worked there in the shipyard. Then I finally started mechanicking, and that's what I did for a living the rest part of my life. I retired from the old Cadillac dealer in Decatur.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, but I worked about 30 years as a mechanic and had my own shop a while.
Uh-huh.
But went pretty smooth, you know. Back in the older days, there was no kind of retirement, you know, like Social Security or nothing like that.
Right.
And that's been the best thing ever happened to this country. A lot of people don't have any other means of income, and they take it and get along. And we got assistance for people that can't make it. And a lot of people don't like this country, but this is a good country. This is a good country.
I'm in agreement with you on that.
I hadn't seen the whole world, but I've seen a lot of it, and I'm glad I was born right here in this country. And it might not be perfect, but we do pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, looking back over your 100 years of life, what is your definition of happiness?
Well, if you find peace within yourself, you know, there's a lot of things wrong with the world, and a lot of people rub you the wrong way and all like that, but learn to live with it, don't pay it. You don't have to get involved in every little thing. Just do your own thing and go ahead. But I've done pretty well, and as far as I don't get in fights or nothing with people. I just try to get along with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Freemasonry and how that's played a part in your life. And first off, what year did you first petition the lodge?
Let's see, I was raised in 1956.
1956.
Mm-hmm. And masonry, one of the best things that ever happened to me. After I got into masonry, I enjoyed it. I never was no genius at it or nothing, but I enjoyed it and still enjoy it. It's brought a lot of pleasure in my life and a lot of knowledge. I've learned a lot. If you learn masonry, you might not could use it in the world or politics or nothing, but you've lived a little, you've learned something, and you put something in your head that makes you feel good. And some people can learn more than others, but if you want to learn just for the benefit of improving your mind and everything, but masonry, it will help you. It helped me a whole lot, and helped me to use my mind a little better. I never have been no Einstein or nothing, but I've learned to use what little I got. I've enjoyed it. It's been a great 62 years. April the 10th, I had 62 years, I believe.
62 years. Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, I wish I'd have went in when I was 21. I'd had my 75 year. And,
Yeah.
but
Well, looking back on your life and talking about all the things that you've been through and how they've affected your life, what do you consider your biggest accomplishment in your life?
oh, I guess getting right with the Lord. For years and years, I just drifted along, didn't pay much attention to it, but after I got saved and got into church and everything, it brought a peace to my life that I hadn't had before. And a lot of people ask me how I live so long. Well, it's just grace is all it is. It's just, you can't live by yourself or nothing. But masonry and my church has been my life. My wife died in '02 and I moved back to Hartsville. And I've been in the full time in the masonry. We travel a lot, and I enjoy that. It's a big enjoyment to go to the different lodges and meet the different people and everything.
Now, speaking on that, right now under the Grand Lodge, Alabama, we have about 278 active lodges. Out of that 278, how many of you attended?
1 year, John and me, we attended over 100. But I'd say I've attended 150 of them.
150.
Over the years.
That's amazing.
we, John, he likes to visit the other lodges, and we went one year. Joey went with us most of the year,
Uh-huh.
and but there's masonry. There's something to do every night, you know, somewhere.
Right.
And we've been to some pretty good lodges, but some of the small lodges, you know.
Yeah.
Some of the small lodges, you get out in the country, why they feed you wild deer and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that sort of thing, you know.
Hey, anybody watching this, if you want Bud to come to your lodge, just put a bowl of banana pudding out there. You'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Now, I got one more question for you, Bud, and then we'll let Joey take over. If you had one piece of advice for the young people of the world, particularly the young Masons in this lodge and throughout the state and the country, what advice would you give those young people?
Well, I would tell them to, first of all, to acknowledge their Creator, God, and then to get as much education as they could, help their country. We're going to need good people to run the country for years, and I don't know much about it, but from what I'm hear and understand, we're going to be going out of space to the other planets and things, and I'd say get a good education, live right, be good people, and have a good life.
Well, thank you, Bud. I appreciate you taking the time, and I want you to know from all the members here at Fayetteville, we love you, and we're glad you're here, and we love having you around, and we're thankful for you.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the young fellows that we've got in this lodge, you know, to keep it going for years to come.
Hi there, I'm Joseph DeAndrea. I'm also going to interview Bud this evening, and I'm going to cover World War II. And the reason I chose that is because I know Bud is a veteran. I've talked to him about it a couple of times, and I don't believe they're teaching in these schools today too much about World War II. So we're going to hear it from Bud today. He was there, and Bud, I thank you for sitting down with me this evening. Let's get right into this.
All right.
I know you were in the Merchant Marine, so why don't you start off by telling us when you joined and what you did and what your job was?
Well, I was working in the steel mill. I had an exemption. I didn't have to go to the war because I was. We had a material making guns and things and making steel for that. So I wouldn't have had to went to the war, and I was stayed at home and worked in that mill. But I just wasn't satisfied with that. And some of my buddies joined the Merchant Marine, and back then they was wanting volunteers to man the ships. The German U-boats were sinking a lot of the freight, and they couldn't get it out, and they needed the military to get rid of the submarines and the things, and so I volunteered to get in there, So the Coast Guard, I went to Coast Guard, put me through there, and they released me into the Merchant Marines, and I got on an Army tanker, and I served on the Army tanker during the war. It was kind of a small tanker. We could go up the rivers and fuel up the airports and things that they had. We'd run around Europe up and down the English Channel, mostly in the English Channel, and supplied the Army. Well, so we supplied all the military that we could get to with a tanker. And we did that till June the 6th, and we went over to Normandy, and then we stayed in France until the war wound down. We couldn't reach them in that tanker, and they got back so far in when I come back then, and I went to the Pacific, and I stayed down there till they dropped the 2 bombs. But we did mighty fine. We had on the Army boat, we had Army and Navy, and we was all together. We got along good.
Right.
Everything. We all had a job to do, and I didn't see where I was much different to the rest.
Right.
When we was under attack, we all manned the guns, and so we did about the same thing they did.
Well, you mentioned Normandy. Now, for the invasion in Normandy, I believe was probably the biggest invasion this country and other countries ever made.
Yeah.
And the beaches, I think there were 5 fronts, and one of them was Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
And that's where most of the fierce fighting went on. The other ones weren't so good, but
Yeah.
but Omaha was probably the biggest one. Did you ever get to Omaha Beach?
Yeah, that's where we went. I had the 4-8 watch, and I steered that old tanker right in there, and they had laid a bunch of big freight ships out there and sunk them to keep the backwater off. And then we had another backwater out further on out. The Seabees had made floating tanks and things, and they'd strung them up out there to keep the breakwater down. And I pulled it right in there. We had to wait till daylight. We got there before daylight. And as soon as it got daylight, they told us where to go. We went in there, and I fueled anything burnt gas, the landing craft and the supplies. When the boys got ashore, they only had a rifle and a pocket full of bullets, so they had to get the supplies in there right quick. And I more or less kept them supply boats running.
Right.
And but it was a experience you'll never forget.
So you were actually there when the landing crafts were going in?
I went, yeah, when the very first ones that went in, we went in with them.
And what was that like, Bud?
It was different to what I thought it was going to be. I didn't know what to expect, nothing, but when you get in there, the excitement of all of it going on, you don't realize actually what's going on. You're more or less concentrate on what's happening. And I watched them on the beach there, and we had we had battleships and all kind of big guns behind us,
Right.
shooting over us. And but we were so busy till you didn't have time to think about getting scared or nothing. It went real well.
Did excuse me, did you have anything to do with, like, say, helping the wounded or anything like that?
No, we had people for that, but I mostly was so busy keeping the supply boats running, keeping supplies moving.
Fueling them under fire.
Yeah. We and after 2 days, the third day, it come a storm and the wind blowed for about 3 days and you couldn't do nothing hardly. By that time they had opened the little airstrip up on top of the hill and some of the freight planes brought in freight, but we couldn't do nothing. The water was so rough that storm. But
Were you there for the whole 12 days of that battle?
yeah, we stayed there about 6 weeks, I guess, and went down to Cherbourg, and we were the second ship in Cherbourg Harbor. The Navy demolition crew went in there but when they surrounded Cherbourg, well, the Germans took off and they filled a place full of mines, underwater mines and everything, and we went in there and mostly supplied the mine sweepers and everything, get rid of them mines. And the mine sunk, I know it sunk 3 ships in there. But
The whole sea around you was just full of ships.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But we did well with that little tanker. We supplied them anything, the burnt gas and the PT boats. We had the high octane for them. We hauled some, I guess, torpedo fluid, but not much. We didn't fool with that.
Right. Hey, let's back up a little bit. What year did you join the Merchant Marines or the Coast Guard? Like
I think it was 42, I think.
1942. That was about 2 or 3 years after the war started.
Yeah.
And what was one of the biggest reasons why you joined?
Well, everybody where I worked, they was getting drafted and going, and I just felt like I needed to go. I didn't feel right not doing my part, you know. And they was wanting them volunteers, and you know, the military said you're a fool to volunteer for anything, but I was a fool and volunteered for that.
Well, actually, you were a patriot for volunteering. Do you remember, like, some of your buddies that real good friends that you made while you were there?
Yes, when you live close like that under pressure, you get to know these fellas, and you love them and you never forget them. I kept up with them a long time, and finally they all about died off and scattered out. But you share some of your stories, secrets with them and each other. You get real close in a place like that.
It's true.
'cause you all living there close together, and you're all under the same pressure, you know, and everything.
Well, after you got out of the Merchant Marines, after the war, we'll jump forward again, you were considered a veteran. Is that
No.
right?
No, President Roosevelt told us when they wanted us to volunteer, he said, we'll set up something and we'll take this, I'll ask Congress to pass a law, and we'll take you in as veterans, so you'll be considered veterans benefits. But I think Congress passed it and the House turned it down, and it was 48 years before they ever took us in. But they promised us to start with, if we volunteer, well, they'd take care of us later, because they could take the volunteer and get in there and put him to work quicker than a soldier had to go through a certain amount of training, and by the time they got all that done, it'd be too late. So we some of them just went right off the street into the ships. But I had the Coast Guard training, and when I went in, I was trained to survive if something happened, you know. I was trained with a lifeboat certificate, how to operate if you got torpedoed or something.
Right.
But I got that from the Coast Guard. And then when I went shipped out in the Army vessel, and we were all together. We was Army, Navy, Merchant Marine all together. We got along good, no problem.
Everybody having a good time getting seasick.
Yes. One thing that I think helped us in a way that, you know, we were all young, and a lot of us had different ideas and opinionated, and but by the time you stay cooped up together under war pressure and everything, you get rid of all that.
That's true.
After I come back, I settled right down and went to work and
There you go.
let it all behind me.
Well, I know you told me once that at some point in your, I'm going to call it a military career, because that's exactly what it was,
Yeah.
you were stationed in Brooklyn.
Yeah, the Coast Guard, I went through the training in Brooklyn there. And
Where was that at? Was that near
I
Coney
mean,
Island?
Sheep's Head Bay.
Sheepshead Bay.
Yeah,
There's a,
the Coast Guard had that whole thing there in a training camp.
Sheepshead Bay, and I never knew that till you told me that.
Yeah. Yeah, when I finished there and shipped out, I had a pretty good advantage over some, you know, that hadn't had it, because we had training in survival in the water and out of the water, and how to let man lifeboats, you know. You get torpedoed, everybody's scared to death and running everywhere. And you've got to stay calm and let your boat down. You got one man on one end, one on the other. And if you think the boat's sinking, he's gonna want to run off and jump in the water or something. But that's what the Coast Guard, they trained us for that. And I had a lifeboat certificate from the Coast Guard. And I was, and had a little bit of medical training, what to do in emergency, you know, like somebody gets hurt. And that was good. I got a lot of benefit out of that. And I've got an honorable discharge from the Coast Guard for that.
When did you start using the VA as for health care?
Well, it was about, let's see, they took us in about 78. It was about somewhere around 2000. My wife was sick during them years, and I was tied down taking care of her. And when I come back to Hartsville in '02, I got into the military part of it full time. But I appreciate that. It's been a big help to me that that military is a lot better than it used to be in way of medical. I had a lot of trouble with my eyes, and they've doctored me all the way through. Been real good. I would advise any young person that wanted to go ahead and go through the military, because it'll help them. It'll help you grow up, you know, when you're young.
That's true. A lot of other countries, it's mandatory military service.
Yeah.
1 or 2 years before you, and then they give you free education for that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other story. But I appreciate you talking to me tonight about the war. I know sometimes the war isn't easy to talk about.
Yeah.
You're a great American and a good patriot.
Well,
And we appreciate you coming down here.
I would do it all again if I had to.
I know you would.
Might even do it a little sooner. But we've got a great country, a great bunch of people up. I watched the Marines down in the Pacific after I went to the Pacific. And the Marines, they took Biak, a little island there, and the Japs had a Air Force there, a lot of planes, and they fought them off about 3 times. But they kept on until they took that island. And they just took them islands one at a time down there. And we was, when they dropped the 2 bombs, we was in Saipan. And they turned us around, sent us back to Biak, unload what we had. And we didn't know they was gonna drop them bombs. But I'm glad they did. It saved a lot of lives.
It did. Nobody knew about those bombs. I read up a lot about the making of the bomb and all of that, and that's news for another day. But if there's anything else you'd like to add?
What worries me now is everybody's got them. And, you know, the third world countries and everything, they don't care for using them. And so, I don't know. They say the next war will be fought in space. It won't be no ground war.
That could be. Could very well be, all by computer.
Yeah.